Don't look at me like that. You've seen me do weirder. Yeah.
You know, I have to ask myself, why is it that when 4K is the catchphrase versus 8 megapixel, like sometimes you have 4K on a box, which is cool, but then, you know, you flip it on top and it says 8 megapixel. I mean, yeah, sure, they mean the same thing, but, you know, one's catchy and one's like, wait a minute, what? What's up YouTube, Jason here with Byte My Bits, and in today's video I want to talk about a couple actually somewhat surprising, exciting cameras that Amcrest was graciously kind enough to send over to B&B headquarters. If you guys are not familiar with my channel, I primarily enjoy using Blue Iris, which means I don't run any kind of like an Amcrest, Reolink, or some third-party DVR, NVR combo. I have my own custom-built Blue Iris server, and that has been the criteria for pretty much every security camera moving forward for me, is that it has to be compatible with Blue Iris. I said this before and I'm going to reiterate it. Amcrest for a while has been a personal preference of mine. It's a series of cameras that just work. I've had Reolinks that they go out if it gets too cold, or maybe they lose connection, or, you know, I've had all kinds of different off brands that, you know, for one reason or another just suck. But Amcrest has always been reliable for me. I've been impressed with them. And aside from the dome camera that I was so eager to replace with this one, I have nothing but a good experience with them. So Amcrest has a new lineup of 8 megapixel, aka 4K cameras that have artificial intelligence built in. Now I think to myself, okay, is this a gimmick? And really this is the only reason why I wanted to check out these cameras and do a video on it, is because I wanted to see what real world use would one have, like myself, that runs a Blue Iris server that does not run an Amcrest NVR and can't take advantage of that Amcrest NVR interface or software or whatever comes with the ecosystem. Like, what advantage could I get from cameras that actually have artificial intelligence image processing built inside the cameras? Surprisingly, actually, there's some. Not a lot, but there's some. So both of these cameras that I'm talking about today have the exact same sensor. Okay, I've lined them up and tried to test them to see if there's any difference, and I look at the website, same sensor size, same sensor. It's a 2.8 millimeter wide angle lens, right? It's the same lens. It's got all the same, you know, abilities. It's just two different form factors, one of which is the bullet. I like bullets. They're cool. They're neat. But I've actually kind of really grown accustomed to the turret styles. Now, the turret style is basically a dome camera without the big piece of glass that gets dirty every 30 minutes and constantly blurs out your video if you have it in an outside environment, especially here in Kansas. It's windy, it's misty, it's dusty, just gets really dirty really quick. Whereas the turret style cameras do actually get dirty, but it takes like 4 or 5 months before I want to go up there and, you know, scrub them down. The dome cameras just absolutely get on my nerves, and that's why I will never put a dome camera outside again. I was more than eager to replace the dome style camera that I have facing my front driveway with the new turret style camera that they sent me. And I have been impressed. So far, I'm loving it. It's got great night vision. I really don't use night vision. I like the colored night vision, like turn off the night vision because I have lights on the front of my house. It's interestingly clear, but also kind of grainy. I'll show you. Both of these cameras can record in 4K. That's 3840 by 2160. You can do 20 frames per second if you are using the AI built into the cameras, or if you want to disable that and just use it as a dummy camera, perfectly fine. But you will also gain 10 extra frames per second for a total of 30 frames per second. It does have a slightly reduced viewing angle than the previous one that I replaced it with. It's 108 degrees. The one I had before, I think it was 120 or 115. So it was slightly narrower, but that's okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the old camera I had was a dome and it seemed to just cover so much more. And then you shrink it down. You're like, oh, that's different. These cameras can detect movement up to 280 feet away, and they can recognize people and or vehicles up to 56 feet away. Part of the different alert options it has is basically a generic motion sensing that a lot of cameras have nowadays. It can detect audio. It has face detection, which is part of the AI, IVS or intelligent video system, which is kind of like you can set parameters, tripwires, like it's just a smart, intelligent alerting system. You know, it's like, hey, this leaf blew across the street. Let's not count that. But this person in a mask, maybe count that. It has multiple storage options, SD cards. I have a 64 gigabyte one in front of my house. And for this test one, I only have a small 2 gigabyte one, but it's a micro SD card. But you could also use things like FTP, a NAS, or Amcrest offers their own cloud storage. Never tested it, don't know how well it works, it's just there. But now that we're through all those specs and stuff like that makes the camera, you know, what it is, I want to talk about the usability of the AI, which is the most interesting thing, I think, and depending on how you use it, could be super useful. I preface this with saying, yes, I use Blue Iris. Yes, there's a deep stack option to analyze video frames and detect faces, and you can set up all the alerts. You can do all that thing, that's fine, that's absolutely great. But you can also do it with these cameras, and you can set it up to send you an email with a snapshot of somebody's face, which is kind of cool. So if I'm having these things like wrap around the building or something, and it's just, you know, generally watching an area that maybe it's high up, I really don't need to know faces, that's fine. I can just disable the AI stuff, maybe enable, you know, the smart intelligent detection versus the face detection. By the way, you can only do either IVS or face detection. Can't do them both. Same thing with the frames per second thing. Like, you know, there's processing power built in, so you can only enable so many features, so you have to pick and choose what best fits your environment. So if you want to just cover an area, see the movement, whatever, you're good to go without the face detection. However, I put this facing my driveway, and I like it because it will literally just capture people in my driveway, take a photo of their face, and save that photo separately. It also, of course, includes the full version of the frame that it captured, but it will isolate the face, albeit not very well. I'll get to that in a second, but still, it's a thing. So when it comes to application, that's where I think this is kind of interesting. It's useful because if you want to do, let's say, like a front porch or a rear porch installation, and you want face detection, so if somebody shows up to your front or back porch, you can get a clear view of their face, snap a picture, and send you an email, that's where these cameras will shine. If you have your own business and you want face detection to pop up and alert you when someone walks in the door or does something, or some kind of like a schedule, you can set up like a night schedule, anything, whatever the case may be, it's up to you. The point is that you can configure it with hot zones, trigger points, tripwires. It's called tripwires. Once a person crosses a line that you can configure in the web UI, it'll snap a photo of the face and shoot you an email. It's pretty cool. Now, of course, if you were to get into the Amcrest ecosystem, get the Amcrest NVR, you're probably gonna have more app notification options. But if you just wanna get the camera and you just wanna set up these alerts to run separately from your own personal NVR server, that's where these things can come in handy. Hypothetically speaking, now that this has a memory card in it, 64 gigs, hypothetically speaking, if something happens to my Blue Iris server, crashes, goes down, rebuilding it, whatever, this is always on the move. It's always going to be recording and, you know, logging the faces, etc. So with all that said, these new AI cameras from Amcrest are fairly impressive by the features that they have. However, I can say that the photos that they snap, I've played around with some of the quality and I've tested it. I've even tested like night vision, ghosting, things like that. I'll show you some examples here. So as you see from some of those examples, including some of the examples from my front driveway, like they're decent, but the photos they snap aren't necessarily great. Which, by the way, going through my history in my driveway, I order way too much DoorDash. I need to not do that. So the features are there, The quality's decent. Depending on how you set it up, if it's during the day, what kind of light, how low you are, like what kind of good image you can get, when this thing goes off and actually snaps a picture, etc. All those variables come into play, and that's something that each individual is going to have to tweak to their own environment to make sure that they get the best results. With all of that said, if you do not have an Amcrest NVR, you will have to rely on the web interface that the cameras offer, which in my personal opinion needs a little bit of improvement. I understand they want you to get into the NVR and the whole ecosystem, but I just kind of wish that they would improve the way it works. Like for example, you can sort events by face detection. You can double click on each individual event and see a face, which is cool, I guess, but there's no option to like see a bunch of thumbnails. Like, is that not possible? You can see a file list, of course, and you double click on the file, but you have to download each file individually if you want to save them, or you have to double click on each file if you want to preview them, which is a little tedious. If I was actually keeping points here, I would knock some points off for just the interface of finding, detecting, and looking through and identifying faces that the camera was capable of capturing. If you have a certain time frame, you're like, okay, this is pretty close, you can click it, and it's pretty easy, not a big deal. But if you just, let's say you have a business and you just want to see every face that walked through the door for a certain day, well, you got to go through each individual one, double click each individual one, and then download each individual one by one, tediously. So if I could ask for one improvement, Amcrest, I like everything that you're doing so far. It's pretty good. I just need a better interface. Instead of just a file list, how about a thumbnail preview? You know? Put it in some tiles. Let me see the faces. Let me double click on it if I want to see a bigger image, whatever. I don't know, just improve it. You know, use some creativity here. It might be a limitation of the hardware of the camera. Maybe it doesn't support generating a page that can show thumbnails. I don't know. But it would be nice to have that option. AI is useful. You can set it up to be useful for your own personal needs. Before I end this video though, I do want to talk about some of the connections. Okay, both these cameras are power over Ethernet, which is another thing that I love about Amcrest. They're power over Ethernet. They're ONVIF compatible. Like they're just really easy to integrate with third-party software. I definitely like that. But you also have more connections. So you have the standard Ethernet connection, which you can use for power over Ethernet. If you do not have a PoE injector or a PoE switch, you could either buy one like normal people or plug this in. I don't know why you would do that. That's absolutely insane. Just get a PoE injector and plug it into your router. But if you really had to, you could plug this in. It also has an audio in and an audio out, which raises questions for me. Not necessarily for this, but the microphone in both of these, the turrets and the bullet, they're okay. They're not great. They're kind of okay. And the only camera that I've really noticed like a really decent microphone on has been the Unify camera I have, which I never did a review on that. Oops. But this begs the question, what kind of an external microphone can I hook up to this? That might be something I'm gonna explore in the future. I know that there's options, I've looked at them before, but if I were to install an extra microphone, maybe on the front porch, hook it and tie it into the new turret camera on the front porch, would I be able to hear conversations more clearly? Like if something goes down, you know, whatever, like I don't want gargled audio. That could be the key to, you know, a home defense case, but like, I don't know. Just more of a curiosity than anything, but I'm just saying, has audio in and an audio out. Also, you have some alarm wire stuff, so you can configure some alarm stuff. Never done that before in my life, so don't know much about it, but it's there. So guys, as always, if you want to check out either one of these cameras, I will link them in the description down below. If you have any questions, comments, and/or complaints, make sure to file those in the comments section down below as well. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and have yourself a great day.